A losing war turned when the human princess stepped forward alone. Entire generations had grown up under warning sirens, evacuation drills, and star maps marked with red symbols showing lost worlds. The Jarkath had arrived from beyond known space with overwhelming force, and at first humanity had believed alliances and diplomacy could stop them. That hope died quickly. The Jarkath did not negotiate, they conquered. Human fleets fought bravely, but bravery alone was not enough. Jarkath ships were larger, stronger, and powered by energy systems humans did not fully understand. One by one, human colonies fell. Some were evacuated just in time. Others vanished in silence, their last transmissions cutting off mid-sentence. Each defeat carved another scar into the collective human spirit. Now the war had reached a breaking point. The last major human fleet gathered near Earth's defensive line, battered and tired. Ships carried patched hulls, engines held together by temporary fixes, and crews who had not slept properly in weeks. Supplies were low. Ammunition was rationed. Morale was worse. On the command bridge of the flagship Eternal Dawn, the air felt heavy. Large holographic displays showed the Jarkath armada advancing steadily toward human space. The numbers were not in humanity's favor, not even close. Admirals and commanders stood in silence, staring at the projections. They had seen this before. Every time the Jarkath advanced like this, another system was lost. "We cannot win a direct engagement," Admiral Renner said finally, his voice rough with exhaustion. "If they reach Earth's outer defenses, the war ends there." No one argued. They all knew he was right. At the far end of the bridge, standing quietly beside the observation window, was Princess Celara of Earth. She wore no crown, no elaborate uniform. Just a simple command suit, its colors muted, its surface marked with the same signs of wear as the rest of the fleet. She had been present at many war councils before, but rarely had she spoken. This time was different. Celara watched the stars outside, her reflection faint in the glass. She looked young compared to the officers around her, but her eyes held something older, an understanding shaped by loss. She had visited refugee worlds. She had spoken to survivors. She had listened to soldiers who had lost entire units in a single battle. She had also studied the enemy. "The Jarkath are not invincible," Celara said calmly. Several heads turned toward her. Some officers looked surprised. Others looked uncomfortable. A few looked skeptical. "With respect, Your Highness," one commander replied, "every engagement we've had proves otherwise." Celara turned from the window and faced them. "No, every engagement proves that we have been fighting them the way they expect us to." She stepped closer to the main display and activated a data overlay. Patterns appeared: energy flows, fleet formations, supply routes. She pointed to a recurring structure within the enemy's deployments. "They rely on centralized energy control," she continued. "Their fleets, their weapons, their coordination, it all runs through a linked network. Powerful, yes, efficient, yes, but also fragile." The room was silent now. Admiral Renner frowned. "We've known about their energy systems for years. We've never found a way to exploit them." "Because we've never looked closely enough," Celara replied. "We've been too focused on surviving the next battle instead of understanding how they think." She zoomed in on a specific data cluster. "Their systems prioritize order, predictability, perfect synchronization. They assume chaos is weakness." A faint smile crossed her face. "Humans thrive in chaos." Some officers exchanged glances. Others leaned closer, interest growing despite themselves. Celara straightened. "I believe I know where their network is most vulnerable. And I believe it can be disrupted." "From a distance?" someone asked. "No," Celara said softly, "from inside." The words settled over the room like a shockwave. Admiral Renner stared at her. "You're suggesting infiltration into Jarkath-controlled space. That's suicide." "Not if it's done right," Celara replied, "and not if it's done small." Another officer shook his head. "Even our best special forces wouldn't last minutes on an enemy hub world." Celara met his gaze. "Then they won't go." The realization dawned slowly, then all at once. "You can't be serious," Renner said. "I am," Celara answered without hesitation. "I will go." The bridge erupted into protest. "That's unacceptable. You're the symbol of Earth. If something happens to you—" Celara raised her hand and the room fell quiet again. "I am not asking for permission," she said. "I am offering humanity a chance." She looked at each of them in turn. "You've all fought bravely, you've sacrificed everything, but bravery without change will only delay extinction." The Jarkath believe humans are predictable, desperate, and cornered. I intend to prove them wrong. The council argued for hours. Risks were listed. Alternatives were proposed and discarded. In the end, the truth remained unchanged. Without drastic action, humanity would lose. Reluctantly, the order was given. A single stealth shuttle was prepared, stripped down to minimize detection. Its systems were modified by human engineers working with intense focus and quiet desperation. Every component was tested again and again. If this failed, there would be no second attempt. Solara spent the final hours before departure reviewing data and recording messages, not farewells but instructions. She did not speak of fear or doubt. She spoke of preparation. Myra, the shuttle pilot, waited by the boarding ramp. She had volunteered without hesitation. She trusted Solara completely. "Still time to turn back," Myra said quietly. Solara shook her head. "If we don't take risks now, there won't be a future left to protect." The shuttle launched silently, slipping away from the fleet and into the darkness between stars. As it traveled deeper into enemy territory, Solara studied every signal, every fluctuation in energy readings. The closer they got, the more obvious it became. The Jarkath had built their empire on efficiency, not imagination. Enemy patrols moved in precise paths. Sensor sweeps repeated at exact intervals. Defense systems followed strict protocols, patterns. "Too clean," Solara murmured. Myra glanced at her. Meaning they never expect someone to break the rules." The shuttle drifted past patrol zones, hiding in sensor-blind spots created by cosmic radiation and stellar debris. Human technology was inferior on paper, but human creativity made the difference. Where the Jarkath saw static, humans saw opportunity. They reached the edge of the hub world's gravity well and cut engines, coasting silently. Below them, the planet glowed with alien energy. Massive structures stretched across its surface, connected by glowing lines that pulsed like veins. This was the heart of the Jarkath war machine. Myra exhaled slowly. "That's bigger than I expected." Solara's expression hardened. "So is the threat." The shuttle descended toward a remote region far from major structures. No alarms sounded. No weapons fired. The Jarkath did not consider this area worth protecting. That was their mistake. The shuttle touched down in a rocky canyon hidden from direct sensor lines. Solara stood, adjusting her gear. "This is as far as you go," Solara told Myra. "If I don't return, you leave." Myra didn't like it, but she nodded. "You will return." Solara smiled faintly. "Humans usually do." She stepped out into alien wind and darkness, the sky above unfamiliar and heavy. For the first time since the war began, she was completely alone, and yet she felt calm. Each step she took was careful, measured. She observed patrols from a distance, studied their behavior, memorized routes. The Jarkath soldiers were powerful but rigid. They reacted slowly to anything unexpected. Solara adapted. She moved when they paused, hid when they advanced. She used terrain, shadows, and silence. Human endurance carried her forward even as exhaustion crept in. Hours passed. By the time she reached the outer layers of the energy network, Solara understood something clearly. The Jarkath had built a perfect system for a perfect universe, but the universe was not perfect. And neither were humans. They were something else entirely. As Solara prepared to take her first real step into the heart of the enemy's power, she knew one truth without doubt. This war would not be won by fleets alone. It would be won by those willing to think differently. And humanity had always been very good at that. Solara's shuttle moved silently through the dark expanse of space, slipping past the Jarkath patrols like a shadow hiding from the light. Outside the small viewport, alien warships glimmered with ominous energy, their jagged edges slicing through the blackness, each one a reminder of the fleet that had crushed countless human colonies. Yet inside the shuttle, Solara felt neither fear nor despair. She felt determination, the quiet, unshakable belief that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humans could turn the tide. The shuttle's systems hummed softly, the only sound in the cabin apart from the occasional clicking of Solara's fingers against the console. She had spent hours reviewing stolen intelligence, memorizing patrol patterns, and calculating trajectories. The enemy relied on predictability, and humans thrived on unpredictability. This was the principle she planned to exploit. "Coordinates set for the energy hub world," said Myra, Solara's pilot and closest confidant. "But sensors show heavy activity. I don't like the look of this." Celera leaned over the console, her eyes scanning the holographic map. I know it's dangerous, Myra. That's why we're doing this alone. No fleet to slow us down, no generals second-guessing every move. Just us and the mission. If we succeed, it's all over for them. Myra swallowed, but nodded. She knew better than to argue. Celera had a way of making even the most impossible plans seem achievable, not because they were easy, but because she could see solutions that others could not. The shuttle descended into the atmosphere of the alien world. The sky was a swirling mix of green and black, illuminated by the pulsing light of the energy network below. Towers stretched impossibly high, connected by glowing conduits that carried power to the Jarkath war machines. Celera's eyes narrowed. Every pulse of light was a heartbeat of their war effort, every beam of energy a vein she could exploit. They landed in a shadowed canyon miles away from the main hub. Celera stepped out of the shuttle, the alien wind biting at her face through the protective suit. She carried only what she needed, a portable hacking device, a small energy blade, and the confidence of knowing she could outthink her enemies. Myra stayed behind, monitoring communications and providing remote support. Celera moved quickly, silently weaving through the terrain. Her small frame and human agility allowed her to hide behind rocks, slip past patrol drones, and move without drawing attention. The Jarkath soldiers were massive, their limbs armored in thick carapace, their senses sharp but limited by rigid patterns. Celera observed, noting how they rotated their patrols, the intervals at which sensors scanned the ground, and the weak spots where the energy conduits were accessible. She crouched behind a jagged boulder and activated her hacking device. Tiny lights flickered as she interfaced with the nearest Jarkath sensor. It was delicate work, threading through layers of alien code without triggering alarms. Each successful bypass made her pulse quicken, not with fear, but with exhilaration. She was a single human, facing a civilization that had underestimated her species at every turn, and she was proving them wrong. Hours passed. Celera moved from shadow to shadow, slowly approaching the hub. She left subtle traps behind, false signals and phantom movements, that would mislead any patrols following her trail. Every step was a reminder of why humans survived against impossible odds: resourcefulness, creativity, and the ability to improvise. Finally, she reached the outer perimeter of the energy hub. It was a sprawling structure, taller than anything humanity had ever built, with conduits crisscrossing in a network that pulsed with alien energy. Celera studied it carefully. A frontal assault would be suicide, but there was a way. The network had redundancies, sections that could be overloaded if she timed it correctly. A single spark in the right place could cascade through the system. Celera found a maintenance access port, small enough for her to slip inside. The interior was a maze of glowing conduits, humming with energy that made the air vibrate. She moved with purpose, avoiding contact with the security systems and analyzing every junction. Human intuition guided her as much as technology did, each decision made in a fraction of a second, each step calculated yet flexible. Hours turned into night on the alien world, and Celera pressed on. At one point, a patrol drone swept past her hiding spot. She held her breath, heart pounding, feeling the thin line between success and discovery. The drone paused, its sensors scanning the area, then moved on. Celera exhaled silently, a smile touching her lips. This was the dance of humans against a predictable opponent, a dance that required patience, courage, and a mind that refused to give up. She reached the central core chamber at last. The energy flowed through massive conduits, converging into a core that glowed with terrifying intensity. It was magnificent and deadly, the heart of the Jarkath war effort. Celera approached, placing her hacking device against the interface. Lights flickered, alarms threatened, but she was ready. Now, she whispered to herself, fingers flying over the device. Her plan was simple in theory but complex in execution. Overload one conduit, create a chain reaction, and disrupt the entire network. The Jarkath relied on synchronization, and humans excelled at chaos. The first spark jumped from the device to the conduit, sending a ripple of energy through the network. Warning lights flashed across the chamber, and Celera felt the vibrations in her chest as the system tried to compensate. She adjusted the device, timing each surge, each pulse, until the network wavered and then collapsed in sequence. The war machines above faltered, the lights on the surface dimmed, and a wave of confusion spread across the alien city. Outside, Myra watched from the shuttle as the effects rippled through the Jarkath fleet. Communications failed, patrols moved erratically, and alien soldiers stumbled in confusion. Solara's actions had created a domino effect, turning the once indomitable network into chaos. Solara allowed herself a brief moment to rest, leaning against a conduit, eyes scanning the trembling structure. The risk had been immense, yet every move, every calculation, every bit of courage had paid off. She thought of humanity, of all the colonies that had suffered under alien conquest, of every life that had been lost, and of the resilience that defined her people. This victory was small, but it was proof that humans could defy expectations, even when cornered. The night was quiet now, filled with the hum of failing machinery and distant alarms. Solara knew she could not linger. She had to return to her fleet, to guide the human forces into the advantage she had created. Yet as she made her way back through the corridors, she felt a sense of pride and exhilaration. Alone, she had done what armies could not. Alone, she had turned the first page of a new chapter for humanity. Reaching the shuttle, she climbed aboard, the first rays of an alien dawn glinting against the metal hull. Myra greeted her with a relieved smile. "You did it! The network, it's collapsing everywhere." Solara nodded, her gaze steady. "This is only the beginning." They underestimated humans, and that's their greatest mistake. We'll finish this, but we do it our way, smart, unpredictable, unstoppable. As the shuttle lifted off, Solara looked down at the alien world. The hub was no longer invincible. Humanity had found its edge, not in numbers, not in brute strength, but in courage, ingenuity, and the audacity to act when others hesitated. Even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, the spark of human resilience had ignited, and it would not be extinguished. The Jarkath would learn that humans were more than their fleets, more than their colonies. Humans were a force that thrived against impossible odds, a species that would fight with creativity, intelligence, and unyielding determination. Solara's heart swelled with resolve. Tomorrow, the human fleet would strike, guided by the chaos she had created. And tomorrow, humanity would begin the long path to victory, proving once again that even a single individual, acting with courage and wisdom, could change the fate of a war that seemed lost. She gazed at the stars, thinking of the battles to come. She was a princess, but more than that, she was a symbol. A symbol of hope, a symbol of defiance, and a living testament to the truth that no matter how dark the war, humans had a way of shining through. The shuttle rose higher, leaving the alien world behind. Solara knew that the next steps would be just as dangerous, just as demanding, but she also knew that humans were never truly defeated. Not when they dared, not when they thought, not when they believed in the impossible. And as the shuttle streaked toward the waiting human fleet, Solara allowed herself a small smile. The war had shifted. The humans had a chance now, and this time they would not let it slip away. The human fleet hung at the edge of the Jarkath-controlled system, waiting for Solara's signal. Their once-defeated forces now bristled with cautious optimism. Reports of strange disruptions in the alien energy network had begun to filter through, and though no one fully understood the scope of it, the generals recognized an opportunity. Every human ship, battered yet unbroken, was ready to strike. Solara emerged from the shuttle into the command deck of the Eternal Dawn, her eyes scanning the array of tactical displays. The faces around her were tense, the weight of despair from years of losses still heavy in the room. But Solara's presence changed the mood. She didn't need to speak. Her confidence, her calm determination was enough. Humans had a way of inspiring courage even in the bleakest moments, and she was a living testament to that truth. "The network is failing," she said firmly. "Their fleets will be disorganized within the hour. If we act now, we can take the offensive. We will not fight them as they expect. We will fight smarter." The generals exchanged uneasy glances. Many still feared Solara's boldness, the audacity of a princess leading a fleet into battle. But she had already proven that she understood the enemy better than anyone. And humans, when led by someone willing to think beyond conventional rules, were almost impossible to predict. Solara plotted the attack carefully, relying on intelligence from her infiltration and the rapid analysis of her engineers. The human fleet would strike in waves, using small, agile squadrons to exploit the gaps she had created in the alien energy network. The Jarkath were powerful, but their dependence on centralized systems made them vulnerable to disruption. As the first human ships approached the outer patrols, the Zarkath responded with arrogance. They assumed the humans were disorganized and desperate, but they underestimated the human ability to adapt on the fly. The first strike squadron darted through the patrol lines, using unconventional flight patterns that confused enemy targeting systems. Missiles meant for them veered off course, while the humans scored precise hits on critical systems. Solara watched the battle unfold on the main display, her mind racing through every possible contingency. She coordinated the fleet with a blend of intuition and data, issuing commands that leveraged human unpredictability. When one squadron encountered heavy resistance, she redirected reinforcements before the aliens could react. Every maneuver revealed a truth about humanity. Creativity and strategy often outweighed sheer firepower. The Zarkath fleet faltered. Their ships, once perfectly synchronized, now collided and misfired. Energy beams intended for human vessels struck each other, causing chain reactions that disabled multiple ships at once. Solara's sabotage of their energy network had turned their own systems against them. Panic spread among the alien ranks, a feeling foreign to a species used to precision and dominance. Amid the chaos, Solara noticed an elite Zarkath commander attempting to regroup the fleet. He was massive, towering over his crew, and his armor gleamed with advanced shielding. He roared orders, trying to restore control, but the humans had learned the value of flexibility. Small strike teams, led by the fleet's best pilots, exploited every weakness, overwhelming the alien commander's attempts at coordination. In the midst of battle, Solara realized that human ingenuity could also take advantage of the enemy's arrogance. The Zarkath assumed humans would always respond predictably, relying on formation and strict protocols. Solara ordered her squadrons to feign retreat, drawing the alien ships into a narrow asteroid field where human ships could ambush them. The trap worked perfectly. The alien ships became easy targets, their massive frames ill-suited for the tight, unpredictable environment. Meanwhile, Solara herself coordinated a daring maneuver. The Eternal Dawn would act as a mobile command center, drawing attention and appearing vulnerable, while hidden strike craft infiltrated the heart of the enemy formation. She knew the risks. A single mistake could mean the loss of the flagship and a crushing blow to human morale. But humans thrived when the stakes were highest. They were resilient, adaptable, and capable of extraordinary bravery when no one else dared to act. The Zarkath commander, growing frustrated, sent his personal warship into a direct assault on the human flagship. Energy beams cut through the void, tearing at the hull, yet the humans were prepared. Shields absorbed the worst of the impact, while the Eternal Dawn's agile maneuvers made it difficult for the alien to land critical hits. Every evasion, every calculated countermeasure highlighted the human capacity to innovate under pressure. Solara's mind worked faster than any algorithm. She calculated trajectories, predicted enemy reactions, and adjusted tactics in real time. She realized that the fight was not just physical but psychological. The Zarkath had expected fear. They had expected hesitation. Instead, they faced a human fleet that was confident, coordinated, and unafraid. The aliens hesitated, and hesitation in battle was fatal. Her plan unfolded flawlessly. Small human squadrons targeted the enemy's energy conduits, causing further disruptions. Missiles and energy pulses detonated in precise patterns, creating confusion and panic. The elite Zarkath commander, enraged, tried to concentrate his forces, but the humans' unpredictability made every move he ordered counterproductive. Ships collided, weapons misfired, and the aliens' one-structured formation became a chaotic storm of destruction. Solara seized the moment. She ordered the human fleet to encircle the remaining alien ships, using speed and agility to keep them off balance. The humans struck from multiple angles simultaneously, leaving the Zarkath no chance to recover. Every human pilot acted like an extension of Solara's mind, executing strategies she had devised on the fly. In the heart of the battle, Solara allowed herself a brief smile. She could see the shift in momentum. Humanity, once cornered and on the brink of defeat, now dominated the fight. The aliens had underestimated them, dismissed their ingenuity, and assumed that numbers alone would ensure victory. But humans had something more powerful: creativity, courage, and the ability to adapt instantly to changing conditions. The elite Jarkath commander, realizing the tide had turned, attempted a desperate retreat. Selara anticipated this. She ordered a specialized strike team to cut off the escape route, trapping the alien warship between human forces. Energy beams flared as the Jarkath fought desperately, but they were outmaneuvered at every turn. Finally, a coordinated strike disabled the alien ship's engines, leaving it drifting helplessly. Selara's strategy worked so effectively that alien morale collapsed. Ships began retreating in disarray, abandoning key positions and leaving entire sectors of the battlefield unguarded. Human forces pressed the advantage, pushing forward with relentless precision. It was not sheer strength that won the battle, but human intellect and adaptability, the essence of what made humanity formidable in the galaxy. As the battle drew to a close, Selara allowed herself a moment to reflect. The Jarkath, once thought invincible, had been defeated by a combination of foresight, daring, and human ingenuity. Her infiltration of the energy hub, the careful sabotage, and the creative battle strategies had turned what seemed like certain defeat into a decisive victory. Messages from human colonies began to pour in. Word of Selara's bravery and the fleet's success spread quickly, inspiring hope where despair had once ruled. Children, soldiers, and civilians alike heard of a single human princess who had dared to act alone and change the course of the war. They learned that courage and intelligence, not just brute force, defined human resilience. The battlefield, now silent, bore the marks of conflict. The human fleet had suffered losses, but they were minimal compared to what had been predicted. And for every human ship still standing, there was a story of heroism, of quick thinking, and of the refusal to surrender. The Jarkath were scattered, their command structure broken, their dominance challenged in a way no one had imagined. Selara stood on the bridge of the eternal dawn, watching as human ships repaired and regrouped. Her face was calm, her mind already planning the next moves. The war was far from over, but the tide had turned. Humanity had proven that even against a superior enemy, a species with courage, creativity, and a refusal to yield could prevail. Her eyes lingered on the stars beyond the viewport. The galaxy had underestimated humans, dismissed them as weak, and assumed their defeat was inevitable. But Selara had shown them that humanity's strength was not just in fleets or weapons. It was in the minds, hearts, and determination of every individual willing to act boldly. The story of this battle would echo for generations. Humans would remember the moment when a single princess infiltrated the heart of the enemy, disrupted an entire network, and coordinated a fleet to achieve victory against impossible odds. And the Jarkath, once proud and certain of their supremacy, would never again underestimate humanity. Selara's mind turned to the future. The next phase of the war would require even greater strategy, even bolder actions. But humanity had tasted triumph, had proven that audacity and intelligence could bend the course of fate. They had turned defeat into hope, fear into opportunity, and chaos into victory. As the human fleet prepared to press forward, Selara addressed her crew and pilots. This victory is ours, but it is only the beginning. Remember what we are capable of. Remember that when we think, when we act, when we refuse to accept the impossible, we are unstoppable. The galaxy will learn that humans are not just survivors. They are masters of opportunity, and today we have shown them the truth. The crew erupted in cheers, their spirits lifted by the triumph and by Selara's unwavering confidence. In that moment, the Eternal Dawn was more than a ship. It was a symbol of human resilience, of ingenuity, and of the extraordinary power that could emerge when courage met opportunity. Selara allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. The war had shifted, the humans had the upper hand, and the galaxy would never forget the moment when a single princess, acting with wisdom and bravery, turned the tide of history. The stars outside glimmered with possibility. Humanity had proven its worth, and the fight was far from over. But for the first time in years, hope burned brighter than fear. And in the heart of the fleet, Selara knew that as long as humans dared to think, dared to act, and dared to believe, nothing could truly stop them. The remnants of the Jarkath fleet were scattered across the system, their ships crippled and command fractured. Where once there had been precision and power, now there was chaos and fear. Human scouts reported enemy units fleeing toward uncharted space, their formations broken, their morale shattered. It was a moment that seemed impossible weeks ago, when humanity had been cornered and losing every battle. But now, thanks to Salara's daring and the fleet's relentless action, the tide had finally turned. Salara stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching the stars streak past as human ships moved in coordinated formations. The adrenaline from the recent battle still lingered in the air, but she felt no fear, only clarity. Victory was within reach, but it required patience, precision, and the kind of strategic thinking humans excelled at under pressure. "Commander, we've located the remaining Jarkath capital ship," reported Lieutenant Kale, his voice steady but tense. "It's attempting to escape toward the uncharted sector. If we intercept, we could finally end this war." Salara nodded. "Plot a course to cut them off, but this isn't about brute force. We'll use their panic against them. Remember, they're unpredictable when cornered, and humans are the masters of exploiting chaos." The fleet moved like a living organism, each ship an extension of Salara's mind. She coordinated their maneuvers, timing every strike, anticipating enemy reactions, and preparing contingencies for every possible scenario. Her calm focus was contagious. Pilots who had been weary from countless defeats now moved with renewed energy, inspired by the knowledge that their leadership was in capable hands. The Jarkath capital ship loomed ahead, massive and threatening, but its shields flickered sporadically, and its weapons were firing haphazardly. Salara recognized that their reliance on centralized energy networks had made them vulnerable. Every human vessel, nimble and precise, used this weakness to their advantage, striking at key conduits and forcing the alien ship into defensive maneuvers. Salara issued a bold command. "Divide into 3 strike groups. Group 1 will draw their attention. Group 2 will flank from above and below. Group 3 will target the energy conduits directly. Timing is critical. Wait for my signal to engage." Pilots executed the order with precision. The capital ship reacted as expected, moving to counter the first group, while groups 2 and 3 slipped through gaps, striking at weak points. Beams of alien energy collided with human defenses but failed to inflict serious damage. Every maneuver highlighted the unique strengths of humans: creativity, flexibility, and courage under pressure. Salara's own squadron moved in close, skimming past the enemy's shields, distracting their gunners, and creating openings for her fleet to exploit. The battle was tense, each second a test of skill, courage, and strategy. Yet humans had been forged by adversity. Every threat was a challenge, every obstacle an opportunity, and every failure a lesson to be learned and adapted to immediately. The Jarkath commander aboard the capital ship roared in frustration, attempting desperate maneuvers to regain control. But his massive, powerful ship was slow to respond, and the humans anticipated every move. Salara issued a final command: "Now." The 3 strike groups converged, targeting the core of the capital ship's energy network. Explosions rippled through its hull as conduits overloaded, weapons misfired, and shields collapsed. The massive vessel shuddered under the combined assault. For the first time, the once invincible Jarkath warship was powerless, drifting helplessly as human forces surrounded it. Victory was in sight, but Salara remained vigilant. She knew the aliens were cunning and could attempt a final, desperate attack. Every human pilot understood this unspoken command: act with courage, act with intelligence, and act together. Humans thrived where others faltered under pressure. They were adaptable, inventive, and relentless. As the final blows struck the capital ship, its engines exploded, sending fragments scattering into space. The remaining Jarkath ships attempted to flee, but with their command structure broken and their morale shattered, they were easy prey for the human fleet. Within hours, the system was clear of enemy forces, the threat of invasion eliminated, and the humans had claimed a decisive victory. Salara allowed herself a moment to breathe, leaning on the railing of the Eternal Dawn's bridge. The stars stretched endlessly before her, but now they represented possibility, not fear. Humanity had faced extinction, had endured years of relentless attacks, and yet had emerged victorious. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now it would never make the same mistake again. Messages from human colonies arrived, congratulating the fleet and celebrating Salara's daring leadership. Stories spread of the princess who had infiltrated the enemy's energy hub alone, who had disrupted the entire network, and who had turned the tide of war through courage and intelligence. Her actions inspired not just soldiers, but civilians, children, and scientists alike. Humanity had learned an essential truth. Even the smallest individual, acting with determination and ingenuity, could change the course of history. Solara addressed the fleet, her voice calm but commanding. "We have won this battle, but we must remain vigilant. The Jarkath underestimated us, and their arrogance led to their downfall. Humanity's strength lies not just in weapons, but in our courage, creativity, and the willingness to act when no one else dares. Let this victory be a reminder to all, we are not to be underestimated. We are human, and we are unstoppable when we work together." The crew erupted in cheers. Soldiers who had faced despair now felt pride. Pilots who had once been unsure of their purpose now understood the power of human ingenuity. Every individual aboard the fleet carried a renewed sense of hope, a reminder that they were capable of extraordinary feats. In the following days, the human fleet repaired damaged ships and consolidated control over the system. Solara's strategic brilliance and personal courage became a legend within the ranks, and her example inspired new tactics and innovations across the colonies. Humans learned to trust not only their weapons, but also their minds, their adaptability, and their capacity to think boldly in the face of overwhelming odds. Solara visited her crew personally, offering encouragement, listening to concerns, and inspiring confidence. She understood that leadership was more than giving orders. It was about showing the way, proving that even in the darkest moments, humanity could prevail through intelligence and courage. Her presence reminded everyone that victory was possible not through fear or force alone, but through determination and the refusal to accept defeat. Meanwhile, the Jarkath, scattered and demoralized, regrouped in distant regions of space. They had learned a painful lesson. Humans were not predictable, not weak, and not easily defeated. Rumors of a single princess who had altered the outcome of a war spread rapidly through their ranks, sowing doubt and fear. The legend of Solara became a symbol of human ingenuity and audacity, proof that even the most formidable foes could be overcome through courage, intellect, and daring action. Solara, though proud of the victory, remained focused on the future. She knew that wars were not won in a single battle, but the lesson humanity had learned here was priceless. Courage, creativity, and bold thinking could change the course of events. The galaxy would now remember humanity not as a species to be conquered, but as a force capable of extraordinary feats. As she stood on the bridge, watching the stars, Solara reflected on how far humanity had come. From the brink of extinction, from a war that seemed impossible to win, they had emerged victorious. The spark of resilience, the refusal to surrender, and the ability to think beyond conventional limits had defined them. Humans were survivors, innovators, and fighters, not because they were the strongest physically, but because they were clever, adaptable, and courageous. The victory was celebrated across human colonies. Songs, stories, and records chronicled the daring actions of Solara and the fleet. Children learned that bravery and intelligence could triumph over raw power. Scientists studied the tactics used in the battle, applying lessons to technology and exploration. Soldiers were inspired to innovate in future engagements, knowing that humans could win not only with numbers but with strategy, creativity, and courage. Solara's personal journey became a legend. She was not just a princess, but a symbol of what humanity could achieve when one individual dared to act. She had taken risks others would not, relied on intelligence over force, and demonstrated that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humans could succeed. Her story was a reminder that victory often belonged to those who were willing to think, to act, and to believe in the impossible. As the human fleet prepared to leave the system, Solara looked toward the stars, imagining the endless possibilities. Humanity had learned that courage, creativity, and adaptability were their greatest weapons. The galaxy, once filled with threats and challenges, was now open to them, filled with opportunities for exploration, conquest, and the assertion of human ingenuity. Solara smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning. Humanity had proven that it could face annihilation and emerge victorious. They had learned to fight smarter, to act boldly, and to embrace the qualities that made them uniquely human. Every colony, every fleet, and every individual carried a piece of this lesson forward. The stars shimmered with promise. Humanity had secured not only a military victory, but also a statement to the galaxy. Humans were not to be underestimated. They were a species capable of extraordinary feats, driven by courage, intelligence, and the refusal to accept defeat. Solara stood tall, a quiet but unshakable presence. She had turned a losing war into a story of triumph, proving that one individual, acting with courage and ingenuity, could change the fate of countless lives. The galaxy would remember this moment, and humanity would continue to thrive, resilient, inventive, and unstoppable. And as the fleet sailed into the expanse of space, carrying with them the lessons of victory, Solara knew that humanity's story had only just begun. The stars were theirs to explore, their ingenuity unmatched, their courage limitless, and their legacy, like hers, would endure across time and space, forever reminding the universe that humans could rise, adapt, and conquer even the most impossible odds. A losing war turned when the human princess stepped forward alone.